Good afternoon. This is
Good
Dr.
afternoon.
Sai Bhaskar Reddy. Today we are discussing with Sri Sudhakar Reddy Garu, an engineer as well as an agriculturist. He is very well known for his work in the field of agriculture, especially with policy makers. He had been working and initiating so many things that need to exist today, especially for the sustainability of agriculture. And especially today, we'll be focusing on the learning of a farmer or the need for agriculture education and for continuous learning as well as updating the knowledge skills of rural people continuously to tackle with the current challenges in agriculture, as well as we know that agriculture is information based agriculture and technology based agriculture, and so much new things are happening every day, and the farmers need to be updated in this regard, and how all the systems, the existing systems or various other agencies, both public and private sectors, what is the role that they are playing and how they could tackle this current situation, especially in the context of the food security in many of the countries and the economic recession and degradation of resources, and overall addressing the sustainability of agriculture, that is also goal number 2 under the sustainable development goals. Now I request Sri Sudhakar Reddy Garu to express his opinions in this regard. Yes, sir.
Well, well, in fact, I worked in public sector undertakings before I got into farming. We have our own ancestral fields, you see, in Kodangal, Vikarabad district, in our village named Regadi Mailaram. I've been serving this agriculture for last 10 years and using my engineering skills. Well, I have developed some analytical power to decide things, especially agriculture is such a critical field where there are so many interactions involved. Because basically it is starting with soil, seed, water, nutrients, and above all the climate. See, in the days coming to the climate, it is definitely a critical factor in agriculture above seed, water, nutrients, things like that. Because we don't know when environment will prevail. Its effects on the total field conditions. So it's therefore necessary that the technology, when technologies are playing a vital role, we expect farmers also to be involved in the scientific terms and terminologies. This is where it is felt that there should be some sort of learning to the farmers. So whenever they find time, whenever or we should otherwise create some time for them, give a time slot. So when they come from the fields, they must necessarily be educated on these technical terminologies apart from letting them know the words. And if they do not know already some words, we have to necessarily educate them to have an understanding of what they are trying to learn. So can be made useful see in the fields with proper understanding. Unless farmers have understanding about the technologies, so there is no point in adapting this technology. Therefore, it is becoming essential that we have got to adapt the technologies in the fields, and therefore there is a need for adaptation of the skills. So in every person who matters in the agriculture. Therefore, since we have small and marginal farmers, necessarily every out of 60%, every 6 people, 100 people, 60 people are involved in farming. Therefore, since the small and marginal farmers are more, every second fellow or first fellow, I mean third fellow would necessarily be involved in the farming. So it is dire necessary that governments make efforts to educate these farmers on these lines, apart from giving them the skill training in various public sector undertakings, where already some educated people are there. The government norms are there to give them skills in institutions like NORM or Manage, and the inputs coming to them from these institutions are covered to these educated people on certain periodical basis by advertising in various magazines, newspapers, calling for the people to undergo this training, which anyway those things are happening and people are getting training, you see, especially these polytechnic students. So the more emphasis should be given to polytechnic students. So in order to go to the fields and then educate these so-called farmers. Therefore, it is essential that some base like polytechnic students being created and then sort of aligned with FPOs. The knowledge, the commerce, and the commercial aspects should all be combined, and the benefits of which should go to the united force. That means the person who, the stakeholders like the polytechnic students is coming into the field after education, and the farmer is putting his efforts and trying to give a better produce with the knowledge of the technology and trying to improve their productivity and then profitability and the quality improvements. And then the consumer or the so-called FPO. So these 3 or 4 links must be linked to see that ultimately the farmer gets benefit through these stakeholders involved in this process. So therefore, it is, I feel, more than the training from this NORM or Manage, it is better that we create farmer field schools in nearby villages. Maybe clusters can be taken as unit, or if clusters become initially a problem by virtue of more number, so we can at least confine these farmer schools, farmer field schools to mandals, where these interested farmers or trained farmers or educated farmers can be given a periodical training to impart these skills to them. And then the technological terms are also made known to them during the process of schooling. So this way, the technology, the education, and then adaptation of the skills, and then facilitating by engaging them, in the fields, the so-called farmers who have been trained in these field schools, because field schools will be very nearer to their own fields. And periodically, you see, the schools can conduct some programs so that this sort of facilitation would help them to know. And if there are any doubts, they can get back to the school. Or if school doesn't know, they in turn can go to the scientists or the extension people. And that way you can help promote better skills and then better practices in the fields.
One of the challenges, sir, as you rightly said, these are basically for those who are already practicing agriculture,
Yes,
those who are in the
yes,
field,
yes.
and how they could update their knowledge and skills as per the demand and requirement in their geography. So these are the including the extension officer's role and various other formal institutions that are existing, and
Right.
some works like the extension of universities also. What role do they really play in reality apart from their research? How do they, including provision of the right breeder seed or foundation seed, or are directly working with farmers with this farmer field school? There are so many options that are there. That's very nice. But apart from that, what we are seeing is the main challenge is today the education in rural areas, especially the school education and especially secondary school education or the junior college level or degree college. This kind of knowledge which is being imparted is basically for alienation of these children from village life to some other life where they could go to some urban area and make a living. That is what happening most often, because the vocational training in education is very limited. Even
Right.
if we ask some children, can they tell the quality of a soil? Can they identify what is the soil type? What are the crops that can be grown in a particular soil? What is the quality of water? Then what is the crop per drop, or what is water use efficiency? What is irrigation scheduling? So if you ask even the fundamental environmental things, it could be anything from air pollution, water pollution, soil degradation, or even the identification of local pests. Because any small pest, as a biology student, they should be able to identify locally whether it is new, or it's an exotic pest, or it came with new crops into the geographic area, even the viral infections, or deficiencies, micronutrients, minerals in the soil that you can identify by looking at a plant. See, this kind of fundamental science, which is basically the part of education and learning, it should have been occurring otherwise also. Otherwise, if you want to just like export our crops to some other place, similarly educating children to see that these children never exist in this geography or entity, then they go to some other place and make a livelihood. This is very, very strange, sir. How could we are missing this aspect, as you rightly said, when 60% of the population is in rural areas, and most of the education is in the hands of government itself, not even in private sector. And these children going as migrants, and are getting in unorganized sectors and doing very odd jobs in the cities. And today we have seen with this global pandemic, again they have returned back to the village. So now they don't have any knowledge of the, especially the recently
True.
studied
Very,
children,
very true.
youth
Very
especially.
true.
How do they cope with this kind of scenario, sir? This is what very alarming, and there is need for total revamping this education system in the context of, without learning about your environment, without knowing your natural resources, without knowing your fundamental things of survival and basic necessities. So there is no value in education. So how do you see, and how do you say that this could be incorporated now as part of education?
It's a very pertinent question. We have to try to link ourselves with the nature fundamentally. And in the process, whichever elements are involved in the nature, which are beneficial and they're helping us to produce the food. See, take for instance, 5 elements are required, as I used to tell in number of seminars, as everyone knows. So I would like to repeat: the soil, the seed, the water, and then nutrients, followed by, above all, the environment. See, these are all the factors that go to help fundamentally the agriculture more sustainable. If any one factor, depending on the severity or the intensity of them, so in the process, the environment will play a bigger role, and that's what we have been seeing now. For instance, you see, suddenly we have been handicapped with this emergency, like the outbreak of corona. Did we ever expect that we would face this sort of situation? No. So therefore, while trying to overcome these effects, the emergency effects like corona, coming to the fundamental aspect of agriculture, where we have been living with the other factors, as I already told. If the relationship between either of these factors, either 2 factors or 3 factors or 4 factors or 5 factors, depending on the situation, like for instance, the sudden rains will be there, say sudden environmental climate changes will be there. See, and the repetition of all these variable things, like the drought followed by immediate floods. So these are all unknown factors to the farmer. So these field programs must be able to involve all these stakeholders, and then try to build these, the program knowledges of the syllabus or subjects, and then all these so-called uneducated farmers, by imparting little education to them, trying to understand these technological terms, bringing them to the school and bringing them the scientists also, see, from time to time, to give meaning to all these factors. What happens if there is a sudden drought? What happens if there is sudden flooding or irrigation being more? Therefore, we have to create balance between all these factors. Do we expect the farmers to see with the present knowledge be able to understand these factors? I'm sure no. So, despite number of institutions giving the training for betterment of the agriculture, the individual factors, you see, with which these farmers are known, we have to familiarize. So the effects of each one of them, what happens if soil is bad? If soil pH is not proper, what do you do? Whether you add lime or something else to bring the pH down. So we have to periodically measure, monitor all these factors with minimum, measurements. So we have to provide simple measuring tools to let them know what is happening, progressively from sowing stage to the harvesting stage. Sometimes the pests will come. The farmer may be noticing it, but he doesn't know the pests are responsible because he might have used excess water or excess nutrients. So if he has prior knowledge, he will be able to cover up his deficiency by visually seeing the effects on the field, like the leaf becoming yellow. See, the leaf becoming yellow has one symptom, but there are many causes for the leaf yellowing. See, there could be excess water, there could be excess nutrients, there could be root problem due to so many pests attacking the roots, or there could be external pests attacking the leaves. So these are all the things, unknown factors to a farmer. So if he is aware, through these sort of field school programs, so such programs can be designed with the help of the stakeholders involved, where the stakeholder could be mentors like us, or the scientists, or the agro scientists, or the management schools that have been advocating all these things. So the programs can be designed and the stakeholders can be decided, and such programs should enable these farmers to know. So what is happening now? For instance, there is a forecast now that the cyclone is coming, is getting imminent. Of course, in which case, if the wind velocity is more than 100 kilometers, there is nothing that the farmer can do. But if he comes to know that if there are windbreak trees around his field, perhaps he doesn't know that he may have to have windbreak trees around his field. Even if he is meeting the catastrophe at one stage, he may be well prepared for the next stage, to prevent these windbreaks or thunderstorms, hailstorms causing damage to his field, by establishing these windbreak trees around his farm. Maybe in 1 or 2 acres it may not be possible. On a collective basis, number of farmers can think maybe about 50, 60 acres. They can think of planning, planting this sort of windbreak trees. And on long-term basis or short-term basis, so many aspects can be thought over, depending on the field situation, depending on climate conditions, depending on the variabilities that happen occurring to the particular area. So therefore, agriculture is such a vast field, and then very difficult to imagine what would happen in a day or two. So the farmer should be trained, or he should adapt. He should be adapted with all sorts of skills to anticipate these dangers occurring to him, not only in terms of pest. It is, and then coming to the food production and then food protection. So the production aspects are related to the plant geometry. So if for a particular seed, if plant geometry is not laid properly or decided properly, see, it has its own effects. See, the density has its own effect, you see, on the irrigation aspect. Now, suppose you have less water. How well you manage with less water is best decided by the plant density, for which you decide the proper seed. So that means your soil is going to decide what sort of seed you should think of. You can't decide seed as you like. See, you can't think of better hybrid seed for low fertile soil. So these are all the factors you see that the farmers will have to be imparted with that particular knowledge in trying to build the relationships between soil, seed, water, then nutrients, and then the environment, as I told you, and which I am repeating now. So now what happens if water is less? So you will have to think of with less water, as you rightly said, crop per drop. How much crop you will get per drop? So it is said that you may need 3,000 liters for producing 1 kilo of paddy. What if you use hybrid? Whether it calls for more water or whether it calls for less water. So the school programs should be able to tell for such hybrid you need less water or you need more water. So therefore, accordingly, the farmer will decide for the water that he is possessing, what sort of seed he should use for this type of soil. So that sort of field programs should be conducted or should be made known to these ignorant farmers through such technology aspects, and ensure that these relationships are not forgotten by the farmer. After all, he has no control sometimes on 5 of the factors. He may have control on three factors. He may not have control on, say, the nutrients or the environment. Environment, suddenly you may develop some sort of humidity overnight in 1 or 2 days. Then accordingly, you will have to think of what is to be sprayed to protect against this dew. So such eventualities, the knowledge should be good enough for them to overcome. Otherwise, if they don't take proper care, the pests will attack, and then the best crop that has come for say around 3/4 or even 80% of the crop period will definitely be affected within another 10, 15 or 20% of the balance maturity period. Therefore, these are all the problems see that the universities or the governments or the departments will have to think of, and then see alternatively they should also be trained. Apart from the extension knowledge, the farmer should also have some knowledge possessed, gathering from this sort of field programs, the field school programs. So that's what I feel.
So you have pointed out very well the aspects required, especially in the 5 aspects you mentioned very clearly, which are very essential as part of continuous learning also. Apart from that, sir, of course, the education department locally, which will empower the youth to take up the challenges and also their livelihoods, address the livelihoods. So that also need to relook into the kind of syllabus that is developed for various geographies. So all the people need not.
Here, let me interrupt you.
Yeah, please.
Here, see, the corona has brought in so many imponderables in the sense, the uncertainties, the adversities which you are not anticipating earlier have been imposed on the society today. Now, for instance, what do these construction workers go and do in the village? Unless they have been imparted earlier with another type of skills, like since they are from village background, before sending to these construction places, at least 1 or 2 years training should have been given to these so-called boys, who always think, agriculture doesn't fetch them anything now. But then what is happening today in this extraordinary circumstance, emergency circumstances, when after emergency is cleared, what do? So now, if now in the emergency, at least if they are going to village, if they have been imparted earlier some knowledge about farming, they could have been handed to their parents today. So they would have been helpful for another 3-4 months. Instead of idling their time in the villages, they could have been helpful to their parents. See, had they known, had they been taught about this farming techniques, see, when they have completed their 10th class or 11th class in the village. So therefore, one should keep that in mind, especially the farmers. And government should also encourage, motivate these farmers. At least there should be minimum 2 years training, you see, for every student. I think even if government makes it compulsory in the interest of the nation, in the interest of sustainability of the food. So 2 years minimum, course should be there for the farmer's son in the villages. And beyond that, the option can be given, say, choice can be given to the students to choose whatever profession they like, depending on their qualifications or future qualifications that they may attain. You see, and then when they go to other thing, at least 1 or 2 years program, I say, should be there to the so-called village boys, so that when they go back, they can't forget this what they have been doing. So in such emergency situations like this now, you see how much of hardship they are undergoing in the villages today. So once the construction may not start immediately, we don't know whether it will be 1 year or 6 months. So till such time, they'll be idling their time in the villages. So it is at least they have to open up their eyes now and go through these sort of programs. So whether imparted by other agencies or self-training today, or somebody can create now some school programs. If the government considers this sort of suggestions and immediately think of some small programs here and there that will go handy, see, for the farming community. And so they can also act as support to their parents. They can work in the fields and help their the total setup in the village, and try to be the cause for improving the productivity as well as the quality and then profitability. And in the process, if they can help their parents, they can also think of perhaps looking for more sources where they can sell their product. They using their local knowledge, going here and there, they will be able to find out where their products can go for commercialization. That's what I feel, and I think it should become necessary to have extra knowledge about the commercial aspects. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you said it rightly, sir. Now, especially, see, when children are young, learning will be very convenient. They could spend more time. And as we said, the laboratory is their environment. And learning will also be more easy for rural children to get connected to nature and understand various aspects related to not only their own livelihood, but also related to the environment and the sustainability of all life on this earth. Then apart from that, sir, a farmer need to undergo so many challenges and agriculture is gambling, it is said often, because there are so many variables which are not in the control of a farmer, and addressing or meeting all those challenges, a farmer should make his livelihood. This is very, very difficult as compared to any other occupation. That's why we say farming is one of the most challenging and the best occupation also, because it addresses the fundamental thing called food security. And they are the people who make any nation or this whole society stand. Otherwise, without them at the base of the pyramid, we could not have imagined whatever the human society is existing now. So now, how to make this farmer smarter? That is one of the first things which I would like to ask. Second thing is becoming smarter, not just on challenges, and all that. Also, the society is deceiving these farmers in many ways. That we are seeing, especially in the context when spurious seeds are sold by various agencies. So till now, there is no proper mechanism. And not only that, various other factors like the pesticides, other things, the food, they would they are able to produce so given all these challenges, so how do we see this, especially farmers becoming so how they could come together in small groups and in geographical areas, how they could address their own challenges. And
See, the meaning of, pardon?
especially the small and marginal farmers
Hello?
exist. Yeah.
Hello?
I'm listening, sir. The small and marginal farmers' existence itself is a big challenge today.
True.
Especially, because their own survival is also a very big challenge. With the very meager land, less than 1 hectare land, so how do we see this? Yeah.
No, the aggregation is one aspect. See, the total sum game. The life is total sum game. More so the agriculture, because more number of people are involved in agriculture. Are you able to hear me, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, when we aggregate the thing, you are able to. I mean, this is what is being talked in most of the seminars. I don't have to tell, especially now. When you aggregate, you will be able to see purchase on wholesale basis. And when you sell, we should think of selling in a retail basis, like how any middleman is trying to purchase and selling. We should also be able to, when in unification, that means when farmer producer organizations, they unite with 100 farmers, let us say, small and marginal farmers, with at least minimum 15 number of people or 100 number of people. The SFAC has certain norms. So depending on that, FPOs will be given certain incentives by way of capital, working capital, or seed capital, depending on their size and how much you invest. So those are all a matter of detailing. Now the farmers will have advantage by aggregating their inputs. Then they can purchase this on a wholesale basis. If DAP has been earlier priced at 1200 rupees, maybe when 100 people purchase, you get at concession rate, and then the benefit of that reduced price will be passed on to more number of people. So that is the advantage. See, and then you have transportation portion on more number of people. If earlier, say, one bag transportation was 10 rupees, 20 rupees, maybe if aggregation comes, transportation charges will come very negligibly, see, low value. So that way the input cost, see, will come down. So the one is the input cost reduction. And then another aspect is above the point of reduction in the cost, you'll also ensure that you get better quality materials inputs. So I'll narrate one instance here. See, most of the cotton farmers, see, are purchasing loosely here and there. And there you have absolutely no scope to have control on the quality of these purchases and the source of these the seeds. So I have devised a method to the government, suggested to the government, that there has to be some traceability to these seeds. Whenever cotton seeds, especially cotton seed, there is scope for spurious sales. So if you have the mechanisms, see, at places with dealer places, with QR code readers attached to the point of sale, see, automatically the farmer will be bound to purchase from the dealer, where he will be given the customer invoice with the barcode reader, the logo on the customer invoice, so that tomorrow when there is it is recognized the seed is bad, even if it is from genuine sources, the genuine source supplier will have to make good the compensation for any improper seeds if it is done by mistake. If suppose somebody has given these seeds, see, wrongly to the supplier, to the farmer has no claim for the, say, insurance. So therefore government must consider all these technologies, adoption of these technologies to help the farmers not to get into the hands of spurious sellers and then lose one season completely, and then bother, and sometimes leading to suicides also. And then even if one doesn't resort to suicide, he will suffer for the whole season, and then investing so much of money, getting loans here and there, he will suffer. Therefore, governments also will have to think of adoption of such technologies to eliminate the spurious sellers in the market, irrespective of their vigilance. Vigilance is one aspect which you can see physically, and you can make these technologies foolproof in such a way that right from the selling point where its traceability can be ensured to the field. I have already told earlier in one of these programs that even the extension officers can also notice this customer generated invoice where the barcode reader print is also there. And then the FPOs or the volunteers in the villages can ensure that these farmers should necessarily show these authorized seeds, not any seeds purchased from here and there. So thereby helping the governments to know how many seeds are going into the fields. See, in terms of demand and supply also, we know how many people have sown in a particular season with the help of this technology. Government will have ready-made information, readily generated information as captured from different the authorized seed dealers, and from time to time with their data, they can always upload how many seeds have been places seeds have been purchased, how many farmers have purchased the seeds. So the demand and supply also can be controlled in a way of at the end of the crop. And then if there are any failures, EOs will always be noting down. If the success rates are high, and then when you are sure of your data, you know how many quintals of cotton you can expect this particular season. So many advantages could be there with the government if the governments think on these lines. So not only the traceability aspect that is covered, it is other aspects associated with that. So you can generate big data out of which you can make the analytics, and then you can decide how to do, and then whether you can think of exporting in anticipation of the production. All such advantages could be taken into account by the government and prepare itself for the ultimate benefit of the farmer, as well as for better policy making. I hope I have cleared on that aspect of seed. So also this holds good even for fertilizers also. You will not purchase from loose sources. You are sure of your quality of the fertilizer. Even spurious fertilizers also may be creeping in from different areas, even including the pesticides also. So therefore, one can think of methods to devise, technologies and then adapt them in field situations. I hope governments will come forward.
Yeah.
And take care.
Apart from that, you have mentioned especially this QR code method and other things, sir, which are very much relevant for traceability.
In fact, that's mandatory from central government. It's not that we are trying to envisage or suggest to the government. In fact, the government should come forward and readily, and they should adapt in their own interest, in the interest of farmer. And by generating such data, it will be very useful to everyone. It's not that anybody is doing favor to anybody else. The farmer is ultimately to be taken care, and all things can be taken care with this sort of technological adaptations.
Some of the challenges, sir, especially very sensitive, is related to the GMOs. So the knowledge about this kind of GMOs getting into the market and the international companies playing a role, and farmer losing their sovereignty on or their democracy or their freedom to their own seeds or the contaminants with existing local biodiversity. These are very big challenges which are very not so easily comprehensible at the level of the farmer, and the policy makers, whether they understand or don't understand why they are allowing this, And this information should exist at the farmer level, and definitely this kind of learning or understanding is beyond the kind of work that already they are doing, because they are doing so many things and so much information they have to tackle. A farmer, I always say that he need to do something like a PhD candidate doing agriculture, because they have to process so much information to, even for 3-4 months crop also, it is not easy, their life, because they're putting everything at stake. And ultimately they need to exist and also feed the nation. So this information participation, like to our other UN bodies and agencies, how they could bring in this learning, especially at the farmer level continuously, so that they could understand the pros and cons of what they are doing in their local environments, and how their livelihoods are secured, are including the local values of like heritage, whatever the local varieties and other things. So how do we ensure this understanding and knowledge at the farmer level through various agencies?
True. Very pertinent again. See, the GMO, see, is a complicated thing. You know, there is a misnomer or some apprehensions to see about GMO. See, to me, when we talk about the BT cotton, having allowed 2 generations of BT1 and BT2, irrespective of when they have been introduced or when they are moving now. Now, from 2008 onwards, BT2 is prevalent in the fields. What I see in the field is, having experienced, it is the technological management more than anything else, like hybrid. Do you discourage hybrid? No. Hybrid is one phenomenon, GMO is another phenomenon. So GMO has its own management practices. Like, take for instance BT1, BT2. See, we are expected to keep BT2 seeds with non-BT seeds. What is the idea of the technological management here? You are expected to keep the border crop with non-BT, so that the so-called pink bollworms, which are susceptible to this non-BT, they are not susceptible to these BT is not susceptible to non-BT. So they are resistant to non-BT, and then they go into the non-BT freely, and then maybe the 5 rows of non-BT, they go and survive there. They don't disturb this BT cotton here. So since they already it has developed, and now otherwise what happens if you don't put these other layers, see, of non-BT, they will always come and attack this BT. With the result, they develop the resistance. So you are not diverting these so-called pink bollworm to other areas, and thereby reducing the resistance. So that is one way of managing things. That is not what is happening, either due to the mistake of the farmers, because they are reluctant not to put these non-BT in the border crops due to ignorance. So government has to impose very strictly all these conditions with the help of these extension people. So who should compulsorily ensure that non-BT layer should come around this border. Or otherwise you have a latest system, this RIB, refugia in bags. So in the bag itself, earlier for 450 grams of cotton, now they are expecting 5 to 10% of non-BT to be mixed, because farmers, either ignorant, knowingly or unknowingly, they were trying to avoid putting these non-BT cotton seeds around the border. So now in a forced way, when it comes to non-BT and BT seeds come in one bag, so the farmer will have no other way than to show this, broadcast these seeds, or say put the seeds in the rows, so as they come within the bag. So in the result, BT and non-BT, you see, will be dispersed, you see, at a random. So the so-called pink bollworms will attack, say, BT and non-BT. They don't know. They will be attacking them, and then they will not be developing resistance that easily, since they have gone through BT and non-BT in a sequence. So this is the one way of managing the crop. But unfortunately, these things are not being practiced for whatever reason they are. Therefore, if governments impose these the barcode readers, so they ensure that the sources, the seeds will come from the licensed sources, and the farmer will be compelled to use seeds only from the licensed sources, unless otherwise the licensed seed manufacturer do mischief. I'm sure all the branded people will not do this sort of things. Therefore, you'll be in better hands. Farmers will be in better hands by purchasing from branded manufacturers. So there will be less scope for spurious seeds purchasing, and the technology management is automatically ensured with the mixture of these seeds. So that will be advantage. This is where the governments will have to prevail very much. Apart from the vigilance, no point in saying we have kept a vigilance people. What can vigilance people go and how many places they can go and sell? So therefore, it is necessary the technology itself will have to take care of this sort of factors and eliminating these spurious seeds menace from the fields. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Whereas hybrid, when you take hybrid, coming to the hybrid for the rice or any other crop, is similar to the GMO in cotton. Hybrid is also another phenomenon, but once you have seed, that seed will hold good only for that particular season. You can't take the seed out of this hybrid and then use it for the next season. The farm saved seed from hybrid cannot go for sowing in the next season. That farmers will have to know. And these hybrid seeds, see, will give more number of tillers to the crop. Only thing is, you have to see how you manage the crop placement. The so-called plant density is one factor which the farmers will have to be aware of, and the extension here will play a lot of role, and then decide for that particular type of environment what sort of variety of seed will hold good, or what sort of hybrid will hold good. So these things are definitely not happening. I'm not saying in most of in all the places. In most of the places, they are not happening. When we go and ask these extension people, they say they are busy in other things. So for farmer, how does it matter where they are busy? So they expect these extension officers to be available in the field, to start educating these farmers on every fundamental aspect of the agriculture, and save the farmer from all these pitfalls. So that's my personal view as a farmer with 10 years of experience. And as a mentor, I try to do a lot to my own village. And then we are even advocating these pheromone traps for these cotton crops, as a preventive measure, as a biocontrol measure. So if suppose incidentally still pink bollworms persist, then you have pesticides coming to the rescue. Otherwise, other biocontrol mechanism without the need of pesticides is pheromone traps usage with proper lures. So that will attract, the lures will attract these male pink bollworms. And so therefore, there is a question of mating does not arise. So the farmer will stand to benefit with periodical monitoring and then controls. That's, I think, my view on that.
Yeah. Apart from that, sir, the most important challenge is farmers' food processing technologies or entrepreneurship at the rural areas based on their produce. These things they have not taken up much. That will always add some value chains that are created. So, how many value chains that we could create at the grassroots level so that more employment opportunities will arise, as well as their income would increase, the local. So the farmers are basically they are selling their produce somewhere else, and they are nowhere in none of the produce or any product that is produced in the centralized industrial things. Nowhere they have thanked a farmer. So geographical products can also come where the brand of a farmer, the quality of the produce, and all those things can be there mentioned with so much this thing pride of a farmer also, because they'll be very happy once they see that their produce has their own brand, their own quality, and long-term sustenance will also be there in such a case. So this kind of things are not happening, and also we many times we discuss like some institutions exclusively under National Skill Development Program. Also, they have so many trainings that are there presently, but in reality they have not taken up very well. It could be the simplest solar dryer too, or even packing of the produce or grading of the produce. They are the simplest things apart from making into like juice or jam or like that ketchup, like that many other products can also come. So these things are with milk also we can do many products, even with toddy also we can make many products, toddy jaggery like that. So not only one sector, some fisheries, again drying, packing. So many things can happen from fruit industry. So much opportunities are there again. So all these things are not reflected in the knowledge base or entrepreneurship at the village level or even at cluster level. And even when we say this decongestion of these urban areas and empowering the rural areas, so how do we ensure this particular aspect, sir?
There are two things here. Now, one is how do you improve the resource of a country? Human resource, knowledge-based resource, and value resource. The knowledge base has to be improved through technologies, science developments, things like that. Like BT cotton, somebody would have done research and then she dumped BT cotton on us, and we would have been using those things. So in a similar way, when you can increase your resource, so in developing the value, like for instance, mango, I told in another program, the mango can be used to say value addition process can be done. Mango, you can do the bark, you can do this juice. We have so many other products from mango. Pickles can be done. So as the value chain goes, the farmer perhaps when he increases his value chain, his productive time also will increase. He doesn't have to become idle, you see, during 3 months, you see, after harvesting. He can be engaged after harvesting of mango or any fruit. So in his, suppose even if 1 or 2 acres mango producer is there, after harvesting the fruit, when he has awareness, you see, that he has the scope for processing and then value addition, his time can be engaged. That means his productive time is increasing, you see, by virtue of is taking this sort of processing other value addition. So therefore, the GDP, the value addition component to GDP is going to increase, as well as the necessity of the farmer depending exclusively on farming, you see, it can be minimized, and more value or more inputs coming out of it, and then more profits coming to him. He doesn't necessarily have to depend on the farming area alone. He can he can utilize his time, you see, for these value additions things. Instead of every time talking, he's not getting the value for his produce in the retail side. Neither consumer will be happy, see, with the price that quoted by the retailer, nor the farmer is getting what is due to him, because he undersells at middleman level. So instead of the farmer limiting to only one produce, only going into one, as well as increasing the value for the product, as I told earlier. So in both ways, the farmer stands to benefit. And in terms of the GDP, the value to the society, the GDP, he will be contributing to the GDP. And then the tax, in the way of tax also, the farmer will be helping. Instead of saying, farmer is always getting subsidies and then no other sector is getting benefit as much as the farmer. That blame also can be reduced to some extent. Farmer, in fact, will be contributing for the economy. At the same time, improving his productive time and then the resources for having work. So that the 2-3 components value will be there, and the value chain is prolonged. Instead of limiting the value to the level of produce, you can think of more number of things. So like that, in every food item, say the fruit item, like grapes can be dehydrated, and then they can be used to see later stage when it is found in demand. The tomato, which is going dumped, is by many number of people due to various calamities, and the governments can provide these the infrastructure, the clusters. They can provide cold storages. These farmer is not able to sell his produce, and then so it's then this problem will be reduced, and so these sort of problems you see will be reduced.
Yes, sir. So you were telling the various products can be made out of the produce and value addition.
You see here value chain addition. It is not only adding the length of the value chain, that is in terms of more number of products can be generated from out of one produce, depending on what you can envisage. Like mango can go into different products in the value chain to further extent. So you can establish one factory itself from one out of one particular crop itself. If the value chain value products are many out of fruit, so the time you can spend more, the farmer can spend more time. At the same time, the values will increase, the taxes component will increase. Therefore, all agencies will stand to benefit with this value chain phenomenon. So, if a government should think of developing these the so-called infrastructure in the clusters itself, instead of moving these products to further extent, taking to process centers can be decentralized. For even if quantity, it need not be, of course, logically speaking, more the quantity, the prices will come down. But it doesn't matter if the warehouses and cold storages are kept in clusters. People can think of bringing different produce and making their own production centers at these clusters. So, and then supply the local products to those local areas. That way, the governments will have the taxes, the consumers will get prices at cheaper value, at lower value, and farmer will stand to benefit by way of value addition. So definitely advantages will be there. This is where the FPOs, if the ladies are empowered with the FPO systems can help. And then these clusters, again, value chain clusters, can have mandis in that particular warehouse itself, near that infrastructure itself. One mandi can be attached to a number of mandis all over the India. And your product will come to notice of other mandis, and you can start doing business from your own cluster area using the help of mandis, the ENOM-enabled mandis. So you will come to know which are the better prices prevailing all over the country, not necessarily from your mandal, not necessarily to your mandal. So therefore, So you have to think on those lines. The FPO's role will be definitely more in the future time. So government should think of utilizing these FPOs, especially if they can increase women FPOs. It will be better for the country as a whole. I mean, as I was telling in one of the programs earlier, see, they have the moderate abilities and then the compassion, and they will be able to do business in a proper way. And then they have patience. They can be utilized in a number of positions inside the mandis. They can contribute to the exchequer by adding value to these products and then helping the, the, the products go better in these mandis. And that way, with the expansion of these FPOs and with the expansion of these mandis, where the governments have come forward, helping people with the liberal, and that means once you are registered with one day, you don't have to pay license fees anywhere in country. That's one good aspect by the government, and so you don't have to pay license fees everywhere. With one license from any part of Telangana, any one mandi, you will be able to do businesses all over the country, wherever these mandis are there. So government has encouraged or maybe contemplating to give a license to say 10,000 FPOs. Once today we have only not more than 1,000 FPOs. Once you see 10,000 level reach and more number of mandis are ENOM enabled. ENOM enabled means they are all interconnected to electronic means. So like earlier PCOs were operating, different public call offices were getting interconnected, like that these mandis also will get connected. These 10,000 FPOs can do business. So the businesses will expand exponentially here afterwards. So I think government should start realizing the benefits of these FPOs and the benefits of these mandis, which are now not visualized by the governments properly. Earlier they do, earlier they establish, earlier they interconnect the mandis internal operations. Unless they interconnect electronically with the intra mandis, so nothing much can be done. Once they start doing that, I'm sure there will be a lot of potential for businesses, and then the farmers will have scope to discover better prices with the help of these mandis enabled, ENOM enablement, the value of which government doesn't seem to realize. So earlier the government come forward and then expedite the process of establishing these the mandis. It is so good for the farmer, good for the consumer, good for the nation, good for everything. And then in the process, the whole trade get balanced. That means the demand and supply will balance, and the scope for middlemen prevailing and then dictating terms to a greater extent can be minimized. So these are all the advantages governments will have to think and act as fast as possible.
Yeah, some of the things, sir, like food security, we say, but nutrition is another thing. But over a period, the small and marginal farmers and in many underdeveloped countries or developing countries, from subsistence to now agriculture has become agri-business, and agriculture need to be, it is not about people's subsistence, it is to feed the world. Because there are in historically also we see more people died out of starvation in kind of pandemic situations or drought or great dust bowl, like that, many things that happen globally we know historically.
Right.
So in this kind of situation, the problem, the challenge is, one is the consumers choices. Second thing is the kind of campaigns or the kind of promotions in agriculture that is happening. Let us say organic farming, that is one term given. But again, people will say other types like biodynamic agriculture or like maybe permaculture, which is more integrated agriculture, or there could be different now vertical gardens are coming, urban agriculture is coming. So
Pardon me?
they are telling.
Hello?
Otherwise, yeah, I'm listening, sir. So otherwise, the integrated farming, the commercial agriculture, which is more chemical intensive and high input agriculture. So all these things like zero budget natural farming. So all these things have come into picture, and sometimes farmers are also left in between the choices because they need to sustain their agriculture, they need to address their own livelihoods, and also they need to produce enough because again it becomes the government's challenge to feed the nation or import or export any agriculture produce because that also adds to the GDP of certain countries. So how do you see this whole scenario of confusion that is happening, because there is not one way but there are many ways, and each way has its own reasoning for the people who are doing it. But how do we see into the future these things, whether there will be some common consensus happening or people will go differently? And most important is the food is also poisoned, sir. That is a very big challenge nowadays. And that everybody knows how much pesticides and chemicals are used. This is very bad to see.
They definitely should be outside the box thinking to me as a engineer turned farmer, having gone through various practices. I can definitely say, based on my own experiences, having got them examined through laboratory tests, I would feel I'm not trying to envisage based on my own experience, subject to the testing validation by the departments. I would call semi-organic. I'm outright. I can tell you. I can perhaps venture to prove that if the governments come forward. It's not throwing challenge on anybody. It's an open suggestion based on my own experiences. And if Seawery is one example where I have used limited fertilizer. The what plant doesn't know what it is eating, but in fact it is eating plant is taking nutrient in ionic form. What is ionic? The fertilizer is ionic, whereas the organic is not ionic. The whole thing has to get mineralized and then go into the form of ionic thing. Then only the plant, in the case of organic, will be taking that form. So in only difference is in organic, you take more time for that to get mineralized into ionic form. So therefore, we consider that organic as safe, and more so because you are using the cow-based ingredients products. So it doesn't mean cow-based products are always non-poisonous.
That is geographic, sir. The animal fertilizers and all that.
Animal fertilizers are definitely good, but there are toxins even in like fecal matter of human. The animal fecal matter also are having pollution, tox.
Yeah, poultry birds, we know how much.
Poultry birds, you see how much they play, and then you are not supposed to use the litter, poultry litter for more than 2-3 years in the case of rice. Unknowingly, farmers nearby the poultry, they keep using this poultry litter like your fertilizer by other, injudicious use of inorganic in other areas. So therefore, there are proper studies to be made before one comes to conclusion whether organic is good or inorganic is bad. So either way, I would feel what my soil tested after putting this 50% of my recommended dose of fertilizer is inorganic. And when I started seeing my plant density dispersed to a particular level, not close or dense population, I incidentally found in my crop better soil biota, meaning there is a diversity of microorganisms still existing in my field, What does that signify? It means it is still healthy. It has not lost its health. For nearly consecutively 2 years, unfortunately, I decided since rice is consuming more water, I promised my group that I will not be cultivating rice henceforth. So I decided for third time not to put rice. Therefore, I had lost the opportunity of testing my soil, whether it contains soil biota with the diversified microorganisms. Anyway, that's besides the point. But if had I continued, maybe I would have come to some finding that semi-organic will not be dangerous. So therefore, governments will have to think on these lines. You see, not saying X is right, Y is wrong. It is ultimately what proves right in the field is more important.
Yeah, you mean
And
appropriate sustainable agriculture. Appropriate.
appropriate sustainable agriculture
Hmm.
corresponding or in alignment with the environment.
True.
So environment also play a role. If suppose now to take the instance of my own mango, my mangoes crop was supposed to be very good till last few days. Suddenly the mancor in our language, that is dew, the 2-3 days continuously dew was there. And how, before we could anticipate there was 50% fall in the fruits. Before we realized this much damage has happened. So this is where the extension departments will have to play a role. They have to keep moving in their mobile vans. There is no system like that, unfortunately, in India. Even after calling also when the extension is not coming to our rescue. Anyway, I'm slightly deviating from my topic. The extension now plays an important role everywhere, not only in mango, not only in rice, not only in cotton, not only in red gram. See, red gram seeds, if you don't treat properly, you have fusarium wilt. Where is extension coming here? If you don't use pheromone traps, you have problem in cotton. If you don't use proper thing, you see the fruit crops, the mango fruits, you see, or other things, you will have a problem. So depending on seasons, environments, you have to be very careful. The extension departments will have better role to play, and governments must realize they should not divert these extension staff to any other places other than for extension jobs. So these are all the aspects you see one should think, and they must periodically check all the fields for their soil test, irrespective of whether soil health cards have been issued earlier before sowing. It doesn't mean they should be barred from seeing, or they should be prevented from seeing soil health intermittently at random in different places, so that any measures to be done, see whether lime to be added or something else to be added, see, they have got to take care. Therefore, I humbly appeal to the governments. Agriculture is not a small thing. Agriculture has a lot of factors involved. Factors are there, their effects are there, their interactions are there. 2-3 factors giving one effect, or 2 effects, or 3 effects, again leading to another interaction which is beyond the control of the farmer. And then the extension people will have to bring the scientists to the field to see how this interaction can be overcome with proper remedial measures. Therefore, agriculture is not that simple. We have got so many factors involved. So therefore, I humbly appeal to the governments taking these clues from me as an experienced farmer going through different crops and the fruit crops, the horticulture crops, with vast knowledge that I possess today. I have experienced. I have gone through all the field botheration. With folded hands, I request government not to please raise anything is in any podium, except coming, visiting to the fields, understanding the field problems, understanding the farmers' problems. And finally, my humble request is that whatever the retail price the so-called retailer is getting, I would request governments 52 to 60% of that profit going to the consumer should invariably be given to the farmer who is supplying his produce or products as a legislation. They have got so many legislations. If they wanted, they could have, evolved so many legislations earlier. So I make a humble plea to the government. Please give 50 to 60% of the retail price to the farmer. The MSPs have absolutely seen no role here for the farmer. They don't play anything. After all, MSPs have no basis because so many factors are missing in the MSP, the components. Therefore, ultimately, what farmer needs is his livelihood. His livelihood is missing. If livelihood is missing, life is missing. So, what is happening today in the corona? See, he is suffering. Once he comes out of this emergency thing, we don't know what would be his plight afterwards. Therefore, governments, please wake up and then try to help the farmer from all angles. That's my humble request to the government.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Today it had been very good discussion, especially on the learnings and education, or the how the system should support farmers in understanding the various things, ongoing things, and also futuristic things, so that they could be more prepared and their vulnerability will come down and their livelihoods would improve. Especially there is a need and there is an urgency also in this farming sector, and it had been very good discussion with you, sir, today. And so many perspectives from your own experience and understanding you have brought in. And definitely for many viewers, this knowledge will be useful. And next time we'll be discussing more on the monitoring systems, technology-based monitoring systems, or automation, or big data things, as well as geoengineering aspects such as biochar and other things, sir. And today, thank you very much for your valuable time. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell what I had to tell.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.